Good morning and welcome to webinar 4 in our Reducing Farm and Ranch Risks webinar series. We're going to jump right in, and just a reminder that this will be recorded and will be available for viewing later on our YouTube channel. So today's webinar is From Hobby to Hustle, Veterans Growing and Selling Fresh Fruits, Vegetables, and Flowers, and I am actually your guest presenter today. I'm Ariel Agenbroad, Area Extension Educator in Community Food Systems and Small Farms with the University of Idaho. So just a few housekeeping tips. The webinar runs much more smoothly if you don't have a lot going on your other programs, on your computer. If you're having problems with your sound, you can switch things around in Zoom. You can also call in on the number that was provided in your welcome email. And you are going to want to mute your computer sound when you're using the phone, or you get some pretty bad feedback. If you're viewing this on the YouTube and you're having sound issues, then it might just be your speakers. If you have any questions for us, you can type them into the chat and the Q&A box, and we will get to those. And like I said, the recording will be posted online and links will be sent to all who registered, but it will be available for viewing to those who did not register as well. And if you're watching this later, we will include a registration link in the show notes or in the video notes that allow you to go in and register for the upcoming webinars. So welcome. University of Idaho Extension and the Farmer Veteran Coalition of Idaho chapter, we're co-hosting these programs, are both committed to improving the economic opportunities and quality of life for military veterans who might be choosing agriculture as their next mission. This webinar is a part of a project of University of Idaho and the Farmer Veteran Coalition Idaho chapter that's aimed at reducing risks for military veterans who are engaged in agriculture. This project is funded through a Western Extension Risk Management Education Center grant, and over the next year, we'll be delivering a multifaceted production, marketing, financial, legal, and human risk management education program aimed at new and beginning veteran farmers and ranchers across the state of Idaho. We'll be presenting monthly webinars like this one and podcasts, and beginning in October, so just next week actually, hosting regional in-person workshops and tours in each corner of the state, so stay tuned. So our team right now, it's me, Ariel Agenbroad, like I said, the Area Extension Educator in Community Food Systems and Small Farms for UI Extension, and Connie May, our Program Coordinator, who is a retired Air Force Program Coordinator, UI Extension, and she's also the current President of the Idaho Farmer Veteran Coalition chapter. So some of our programming related to this project that you might be interested in. So we have our webinar series. We will be skipping webinars in October and November because we'll be focused on our regional workshops, but we'll pick back up again in December, and we can send out the link to register for any of those that are upcoming. We also have a thriving podcast series. I think we're on podcast 4 already. And so these are individual stories and interviews with veteran farmers around the state talking about issues related to risk management, which might sound rather dry, but trust me, these conversations are really engaging and enlightening. And I've been enjoying listening to the podcast very much. And there's the QR code for getting to our feed. You can download all the recorded podcasts and listen to them whenever you want. They're all fairly short, just a nice little bite of information. We're also really excited to be working on these upcoming regional workshops and tours. So these are 2-day intensive get-togethers focused on bringing together veterans in the region, getting to know them better, connecting them with resources, and really focusing on those risk management topics related to production, marketing, legal issues, farm financials, personal safety, and health. And these tours will also visit veteran farmers in each area, as well as our University of Idaho research and extension farms, any processing facilities in the region, and other sources of interest. And because we have the grant funding, these workshops will be offered free of charge, including the meals and tours. So we really hope that you can join us. Like I said, next weekend is our first regional workshop in the Magic Valley. Coming up in November, we will be in the Treasure Valley. March 2025 will be in Eastern Idaho, and April 2025 will be in Northern Idaho. So our goals for today, right? After participating in this webinar, we hope that you'll be able to determine your readiness for growing and selling fresh fruits, vegetables, and herbs. We hope that you'll increase your knowledge of the applicable rules and regulations related to these products. And we hope that you'll be more prepared to seek assistance from organizations and agencies that can help veterans in the process of getting started in their business. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So I call this Hobby to Hustle because very often the audience for this presentation are folks that are figuring out that they really like growing food. Maybe they're really good at growing food and they want to know what are their options if they want to actually get started selling their produce. So there are often a lot of questions that folks have, and it's good to have questions because some of these things are going to affect you whether you know about them or not. So really good to get kind of a baseline understanding before jumping in. And that's how you can reduce some of those risks. Like no one wants to be investing a lot in something and then find out that there's some kind of red tape that is prohibiting them from being successful. So I have a few questions for those of you that are on. And you don't have to do anything. There's no, you can't actually vote on these questions, but this is just for you to be thinking about. Are you ready to make the leap? So do you enjoy growing fresh produce? Can you consistently grow high quality products? Do you have enough room to grow? And that means literally, do you have enough garden space? But do you also have the capacity to grow if you start to, your market starts to demand more than you're currently producing? Have you researched your market, right? Do you know where you're kind of going to be selling and how you're going to be selling? Have some ideas for that. And then have you identified your niche? Vegetables are vegetables, but you can always put your own spin on it. And when we're speaking to veteran farmers, sometimes your niche is identifying yourself as a veteran farmer and really capitalizing on your story and your experience. And that could be one of the ways that you find your niche. So if you've answered, if you've answered those questions and you feel like, yeah, I can answer pretty significantly yes on all of these questions, then let's dive a little bit deeper into what you might want to grow and sell. And the reason that we stop here is because each of these things is going to have specific rules or regulations or opportunities around them. And so understanding what it is you want to grow can help you when you're researching so that you don't overlook something or get in over your head right away. So do you want to grow raw, uncut, fresh produce? This is probably the least regulated and the most easy or the easiest as an entry-level producer and marketer. Do you want to grow and sell organic produce? Garlic for food or seed, seedlings or plants, cut flowers. Maybe you want to grow seeds. Maybe you're looking at processed, cut, or frozen produce. So you want to sell like a food product, or maybe something else, like you'd like to make a sauce or a soup or a salsa out of your produce. So those would be value-added products. And all of these, and actually this list is kind of in complexity of most simple to grow and sell to possibly most complex to grow, sell, or produce. So a few other questions to consider are where you want to sell. And again, where you sell is going to increase or decrease your complexity or the level of regulation or compliance that you've got to be involved in. So on farm sales, maybe you want to just sell off your farm. You've got a great location. You're close to, your community. You've got busy roads. What would you do there? Maybe a CSA. So CSA is short for Community Supported Agriculture, and this is a subscription service to your farm. Typically, the way it works is in the spring, a farmer will sell a subscription to their farm. And maybe they'll collect money up front. And then once the harvest starts coming in, they make weekly or otherwise deliveries or pickups of their products to those shareholders. Maybe you want to sell at farmers market. This can be a great introductory way to start to grow, to really learn about your customers, and often very accessible since we have multiple farmers markets all around the state. Maybe you want to sell at multiple farmers markets. Maybe you've identified that you've got several folks that can be part of this project, and you're going to cover your bases by selling at a number of farmers markets in your region. Maybe you want to sell to a retail market. You're not comfortable being the seller yourself. You'd rather take your produce by the box or the crate or whatever to a farm stand or to a retail grocery and sell there. Or maybe you're very tech savvy and comfortable selling online and you'd rather do it that way. So really be thinking about how and where you want to be selling your products. And like I said, all of those are going to have their own opportunities and their own challenges. So when you sell directly to your end customer, this is called direct marketing. And with direct marketing, you capture more of the profit, right? Because you're eliminating the middleman or the middlewoman that's going to be brokering your deals. You can reduce some of your risk because you're not dependent as much on other people or other systems to get your produce from A to B. You control the supply, you control the market. It also gives you an opportunity to develop your own unique product identity and really put that stamp on what you sell. So your product, your label, your face, your story go along with those products. And that can be very powerful when you're making relationships with customers and establishing your niche or your brand. You also can set your own prices, which, realistically, there's only so far you can go with that because there's what the market will support and what your competitors are charging, but you still can set that price and make it reflect what you put into your farm and your product. However, not everyone is born to be a fabulous direct marketer. And so there are some things that you may need to think about before you jump into selling directly to your customers. So direct marketing is also really relationship marketing, right? It's working with people, and you've got to have people skills. You might have the most amazing product, but if you cannot connect with people and make those relationships with your customers, it's going to be harder and you're not going to be as successful in selling that product. And that's something that often people are born with or they're not. They can work on it though, right? We can all work on our people skills, but some people are just that naturally bubbly, outgoing, engaging, fearless, come on over and try my product. I am not one of those people. I have some experience in selling products directly, and I've got to work on it. I've got to make myself get out there and be that friendly person. You also need to have marketing and promotion skills. So again, these are things that can be learned. You've got to find a way to get your product in front of people and promote them and bring them back again and again. And then also technology skills more and more are essential for letting people know where you are, what you do, how you do it. I would say that some of our cut flower growers are really incredible in this regard in terms of using technology, using social media, photography, really kind of nailing that customer base and creating that image for themselves. And then once you are successful with that, right, you've got to also have the intensive production knowledge and experience in management to be able to grow and consistently produce your high quality products, right? So maybe you're a really good marketer, but if the people show up and all you've got are 3 little weird shaped cucumbers on your table, that's not going to sustain it, right? We've got to be able to bring the produce, bring the flowers or plants, and then also be able to promote them on the other end. So these are some of the things that I think, are really, really vital and have to be in place in order for you to find success. But there are always opportunities to learn and improve in all of these areas. So thinking about what kind of business you will be. And again, this is going to really depend on the size and scale and scope of what you want to do. And with each different category, there are going to be different levels of complexity and things that you have to do. So you might be a sole proprietor. That's just you doing your business under your own name. You might be a sole proprietor with a business name. So you want to give your farm or your operation a name and use that in your sales and marketing. Maybe you want to be a limited liability corporation or a corporation. And our webinar last week did talk about this a little bit. And so if you're watching this one and you were not registered for last month's, you might want to watch that on our playlist because we do talk about business structure and some of the pros and cons and things like that. Do you plan to have employees, right? And we're not talking about, your kids are doing the work with you and for you, or your family members. But if you're paying anyone to do work on your farm, then they are employees, and that is going to complicate things a little bit. It's not impossible, but we do have to be aware that having employees does increase the level of regulation that you've got to engage in, and reporting and recording and things like that. Oops. All right. So you've kind of gotten through those first steps and you're like, no, I still want to do this. I really want to. I think I've got the skills. I've got the, the knowledge. Let's do it. So let's start with the what, and that is actually growing produce, right? So what do we have to do to grow produce? So first of all, and this is kind of a weird one, but can you legally grow on your property, right? And in most cases, and I would say that, there is nothing stopping you from having a garden, except for maybe a homeowners association may have some input into where you can grow that, and where you can grow food plants. But if you want to be bigger, you want to start having, greenhouses, and you want to have high tunnels, and you want to be able to run your tractor and do things like that, then you do need to kind of explore your current zoning and what is allowed and what is permissible on your property. So this is just an example from Meridian, Idaho. They actually do have this codified in their zoning rules, that if you fall under this capacity, sales of agricultural products or live plant material shall be incidental to agricultural production and shall be limited to what is grown on the property. So this is also saying that you can grow and sell, right? But are also saying for new places that the property used for the nursery or urban farm shall be 5 acres or less. This is just kind of how they designate it. So just something to think about. Like I said, in most cases, there aren't going to be any restrictions until we start thinking about selling on our farm. But in terms of growing on your own property, really the sky's the limit, or your homeowners association is the limit. But that does not include potentially running heavy equipment at different hours of the day, and it does not also include putting up structures. So you'll have to check with zoning about what kind of structures, whether it's a greenhouse or a shed or a high tunnel. There might be some restrictions on that. So just some things to be aware of. All right, so you find out that you can grow. So what's next? Now we get into the selling part of it. All right. And this is a picture from our Harvest Heroes program and some of the lettuce mix that our veterans were growing and selling, and a little packaging on there. We'll get to that. All right. So first, this is just really some basic doing business in Idaho talk, right? So if you are selling anything in Idaho, right? And anything is any kind of tangible personal property, right? Which includes fresh fruits and vegetables, plants, etc. You must have a valid seller's permit. You must collect sales tax. You must file a sales and use tax return and forward your tax to the Idaho Tax Commission when you sell goods in Idaho. A sale is the transfer of ownership of tangible personal property or providing taxable services in exchange for payment. And so tangible personal property is anything you can feel, see, touch, weigh, or measure. So that does involve food. Our current Idaho sales tax rate is 6%, and right now that does apply to food. There have been different initiatives over the past years to remove that food tax, but it is still current and applicable now. So where do you get this, right? What do you do to do that? All right, so getting an Idaho seller's permit, you can apply online and it is free. It is actually, I think, better to do it online because it's much quicker. You'll save about 2 weeks of the process, and it is also free. Like I said, it just takes a little bit of time. So you go to the Idaho Business Registration application at tax.idaho.gov. And you would then apply for, you have some options. You can apply for a complete seller's permit, a permanent seller's permit, or you can apply for a temporary seller's permit. Like I said, if you apply online, you'll get the permit in about 2 weeks. If you mail the application, it can take up to 4 weeks. When you have that permit, you must display your permit in a visible location at your business. And for most of our farmers markets, they are going to want to have that permit on file as well, because then they're liable for anyone selling at their market who doesn't have the permit. You'll also receive instructions on how to file your tax returns when you receive your seller's permit. And you can file the returns online, or you can use paper forms. So what's the best fit for you? Remember I said that there was a regular seller's permit and there's a temporary seller's permit. There's no fee for either. The differences are, so your regular seller's permit is valid permanently until you cancel it. It's valid for unlimited events. And it also requires that you file regular periodic returns. So maybe quarterly, that would depend on the type of business that you're doing. And you must file even if you made no sales. And so then I've got a link here to get a regular seller's permit. We can send you that link. So a temporary seller's permit, right? Again, there is no fee and you can get up to 3 permits a year. And this is valid for a temporary period. So this is often, if somebody is going to do something very temporarily or seasonally, this actually does apply to farmers markets very often. However, it's only valid for one event, so one farmers market, right? You'd have to get multiple temporary seller's permits if you were doing multiple farmers markets. And then you must file your tax return within 15 days of the last day of the event, and you must file even if you made no sales. So depending on how you want to sell, if you are trying to do on-farm sales, or maybe you have multiple farmers markets that are year-round, or we don't have very many of those in Idaho, but if you did, then you would probably just want to get a regular seller's permit. Now, if you're just testing the water, you're going to just give it a try. You're going to try one market that's, maybe from June to September, then you might get a temporary seller's permit just to test the water and to cover you for that one market. So let's say you want to sell from your farm. All right. So this is a little bit different. You're still going to need that temporary or that permanent sales permit. But now you need to find out if it is legal for you to make sales from your home. There are a number of different categories of sales and on home businesses. So you can see here in Meridian how they've codified that in residential districts, direct sales are approved, but it really is going to depend on also your zoning and what is allowable on your property, right? Do you have parking for multiple, making direct sales to maybe one individual at a time who stops by and buys eggs or buys produce is a lot different than you set up a full-scale farm stand in your front yard and you've got people coming, multiple people at a time coming on a weekday or a Saturday. So there are going to be some restrictions on what you can do. And it's going to depend on what you're zoned and then what activities are allowable in that zone. So that is something to get to know your planning and zoning office, either through your city or your county, depending on where you live. So we talked about selling as a sole proprietor or selling as a business name, okay? So all businesses operating with an assumed business name need to be registered with the Idaho Secretary of State's office. So if you are an individual and you're using your legal first and last name as your business, then filing is not required, okay? And so here are 2 examples, and I just used my own name. So you've got your seller's permit and you sell, and your business name is your own names, right? So if I say my business is Ariel Agenbroad Fresh Produce, I do not need a form. I do not need to file. However, if I call my farm Agenbroad Acres, and that's what I use on all my packaging and on my marketing and on my, those things, then I would need to register my business entity. And we would register those with the Idaho Secretary of State's office before you are engaging in the business activities. And here's another reason why doing it online might be a better deal. Filing online is only $25 versus filing manually is about $45, right? And here we've got this web address. It's sosbiz.idaho.gov. And I'm going to show you some of the other things that you can do there that are really quite helpful. Right. So yes, if you want to have a cool name, and I'm not saying that Agenbroad Acres is a cool name, but if you wanted to have a cool name for your produce business, then you will need to register your business name with the Secretary of State. All right, so that kind of is some of the nitty-gritty of just your general business structure and requirements, and that's going to apply to just about anything you might grow or sell. So let's talk about what other rules and regulations might apply specifically to growing and selling produce, cut flowers, herbs, and plants. So are you selling your produce by weight? Then you have to certify your scale. So this would be if you bring a scale to farmer's market, or if you have a farm stand and you're selling produce by the ounce or by the pound, then you have to have a scale that has been certified by the Idaho Department of Agriculture so that it is verified that you're not upcharging or overselling or underselling or in some way doing some kind of nefarious business with your scale, right? I'm selling 2 pounds of beans for $3 instead of 3 pounds of beans. So all commercial scales and meters used in Idaho need to have a device license, and that this license can run through February 1st through January 31st. It is on an annual basis, and you do this through the Idaho Department of Agriculture. Wherever you live, there is going to be somebody in weights and measures that can certify that scale. And there is a small fee associated with that, and it's based on the capacity of your scale. So if you have a scale that weighs 50 pounds or less, your certification fee would be $6. And you'll receive that license, and you can display that or have it easily accessible wherever you are using that scale. So I would say buy the smallest scale that you need. If you are not selling in quantities of 1,160 pounds to 7,499 pounds, then you don't need a scale that size. So I would say somewhere in the first two categories are probably the best scale for fresh produce. So are you selling plants? Well, if you are selling plants, you might need a nursery license, which is also available from the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. So anyone engaged in propagating, growing, selling, dealing in, or importing into Idaho for sale or distribution, any nursery or florist stock must first obtain a license from the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. Now, there is an exemption from that. If you are selling less than $500 worth of plants, cut flowers, seedlings, etc. per year, then you do not need to have a license. You are exempt from that. But if you are going to be selling more than $500 a year in plant material, including cut flowers, then you do need to get that license fee, and it is on the calendar year, and it's $100. So be thinking about if you're thinking, I'm just going to sell a few seedlings early in the season to kind of keep something on my market table, then it may not be worth it to you. But if you plan on selling, a whole greenhouse full of plants and hanging baskets, or if you're getting into the cut flower business, then you would need to have this. So cut herbs is not cut flowers. This does not count toward that. But if you are doing bouquets or buckets or bundles, etc., of flowers, then it would. And so again, this is available through the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, and we can get that license for you. So remember, I mentioned earlier, I asked if you were interested in growing garlic and onions, and that might have made you think, well, why would that be any different than growing anything else? Well, and it is different in Idaho because we have a pretty significant onion industry in Idaho. We're famous for our potatoes, but really we are famous for our onions as well. And so if you grow onions, garlic, shallots, or leeks in southern Idaho, you cannot import vegetative stock for planting without a lengthy application and inspection process. And if you've ever tried to order these products from an online catalog, even if you live outside of southern Idaho, you've likely been met with that "we do not ship to Idaho" message. And that is because of a disease called white rot. There's a fungal disease that is disastrous for onion producers. Once in the fields, it is almost absolutely impossible to eradicate. You cannot grow onions there again. And so it's very important to us and to the agriculture industries in Idaho to keep white rot out. And white rot is carried through vegetative materials. So garlic bulbs, seedlings, the little starts that you get, and the seed sets and bulb sets that you get. So we're very, very careful about what planting stock comes into the state or from outside of the quarantine area. And so you want to make sure that you're buying all of your garlic or your seedlings or your onion sets from a reputable distributor that has certified them, and they come clean and certified. Because otherwise you might have to be prepared to explain where your planting stock came from. And we've had farmers market vendors be questioned, if they're selling a whole table of this beautiful garlic, an inspector might come by and say, hey, where did that come from? Where did you get your planting stock? Now, if you're growing onions, shallots, or leeks from seed, that is not implicated in the quarantine. True seed does not carry the white rot fungus, but we do not grow garlic from true seed. We grow garlic from other garlic, and that's where we can run into trouble. So purchase only certified stock grown within the quarantine region, and keep records of where you purchased that stock just in case someone asks. And if you are interested in importing and growing new and unusual varieties, maybe you've got a relative in another part of the world, and you've got an opportunity to bring in new varieties, then you can work with the Idaho State Department of Agriculture on importing stock, having it grown out in a greenhouse. It's usually either University of Idaho or the Department of Ag is growing that out, analyzing it for any pathogen presence. And once it's been certified clean, then it's turned back over to you and you can start growing it out and reproducing it. So garlic is a really interesting industry. There is money to be made there, but it does have this complication because of our quarantine and our white rot fungal disease. So you may have heard things about food safety, right? This has been ongoing for some time. And there's a lot of misunderstanding often about food safety rules and what is allowed and what is not allowed and who can and can't grow food. But I'm just going to give you the really brief rundown. This is a pretty big and complex topic, and it gets more complex the bigger you are as a farm. But the Food Safety and Modernization Act is federal regulation that oversees food production from farm to fork. And this is, like I said, this is national and federal rules. There are 7 rules as part of FSMA or FSMA. The produce safety rule is one of those rules, and this covers fruits, vegetables, nuts, herbs, mushrooms, and sprouts that are commonly consumed raw. So I will say that the produce safety rule does not cover things like potatoes or sweet corn or winter squash or pumpkins, but it does cover melons and onions and tree fruits and things like that. So whether this applies to you really is based on the size of your farm, what you grow, and who you sell to. And so some farms are just not going to meet the minimum sales requirements to be covered at all by the rule. And other farms are going to be in this middle ground where they sell enough to qualify to be covered. But because of what they grow and who they sell to, they can actually receive an exemption. And I just realized I've got a typo on this slide. So farms that are not covered at all by this rule and don't have to worry about the Produce Safety Rule and Food Safety Modernization Act are farms which don't grow any of the covered produce. So if you are only growing potatoes and winter squash, pumpkins, and sweet corn, because those are not commonly consumed raw, they are on the list of uncovered produce, you would not have to be compliant with the rule. If you are a farm on all your produce is just going to your personal consumption, you're not selling anything, then again, you would not be covered by the rule. If you grow your commodities specifically for processing, so maybe you grow fresh tomatoes, but they all go to a tomato sauce factory, right? Then you would not be covered. And if you are selling less than $25,000 a year in produce sales over a 3-year average, again, you will not be covered by the produce safety rule. So what about, I said that there was a next level, right? And this is qualified exempt. So farms that are selling $500,000 less of total food, and this includes, unfortunately, things that are not just produce. It can include any other food that you might grow, or beverages, or food for animals, things like that. If those all total less than $500,000, and if you sell 50% or more of your products to a qualified end user, you will qualify for an exemption. And a qualified end user would be a direct consumer of the food. So you're making on-farm sales, or you're selling through a CSA or farmer's market, or if you're selling directly to a restaurant or retail food establishment that's located in the same state or Indian reservation, or not more than 270 miles from the farm, then you will get this exemption. And most of our small farms, farmers market farmers, etc., do fall into this category. So they're selling less than $500,000, and they're selling 50% or more to that qualified end user. They get the exemption. And I'll talk about how that doesn't mean that you're completely free and clear. You don't have to think about FSMA, but it does significantly reduce what you would be doing to be in compliance. So we do have some great resources to help you with this. We have an online tool that helps you to determine whether you're covered. We have a record keeping form. We have templates, etc., all on our produce safety side, and we can send that link out as a follow-up. You do need to keep your sales records for at least 3 years, because this is going to document, whether you're meeting those minimums or not. And then this is kind of interesting, and something that I don't think all growers know, is that if you are qualified exempt, you do need to prominently display the name and the complete business address of the farm where the produce was grown, either on a label that goes with your produce, or at the point of purchase, so on a sign, placard, poster, whatever, at your point of sale. So, and I will mention that we have a number of resources through University of Idaho Extension to help you with that. We have annual trainings. We've got a pretty comprehensive webinar. If you're interested in more about food safety, I am the food safety contact for the state as well. So I can talk your ear off all day long about food safety, more than you'd ever want to know. All right, let's talk about something else though. How about organic produce? Maybe you're really, you're a big fan of organic, you believe in it, it fits your values and how you want to grow and live, and you would like to sell organic produce. Well, absolutely possible, but I do need to point out that organic is a labeling term that is federally legislated, and it indicates that an agricultural product has been produced by integrating cultural, biological, and mechanical practices that foster the cycling of resources, promote ecological balance, and conserve biodiversity and natural resources. There are some things that are prohibited in organic production, like the use of sewage sludge, irradiation, genetic engineering, and most synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. If you are selling under $5,000 a year of produce, you can claim that your produce is organic, small o is kind of what we call it, without certification. But you cannot use the USDA organic seal pictured here on the slide. You can certainly not call your produce certified organic. And I think if you're selling under $5,000 worth of produce sales per year, you may not be on this webinar, right? So most folks are going to want to certify their products. So you do need to keep records of your sales if you want to claim the organic without certification. So say you do want to become organic certified, it is a process. It is relatively expensive depending on the scale and scope of what you're growing, and it does take some time. But if it is a necessary part of your production and you feel like it's going to set you apart and set you ahead of your competitors, then absolutely pursue it. It can take up to 3 years for your property to meet the requirements to become certified, because it's got to be 3 years on that piece of property without any prohibited substances. And locally, the Idaho State Department of Agriculture is our organic certifier. They can walk you through the steps. They can start the process with you. And really, organic is a lot about record keeping, right? Because if we want to verify that those products have been grown according to the organic standard, you've got to back it up with documentation and record keeping. So a lot of growers find that they, they might opt for something else. They might just talk about their production style with their customers without going through organic certification. But if you want to call it organic certified, you want to have that label and logo, you do have to go through the certification program. And there are some other third-party kind of distinguishing things that you can do for your produce, like certified naturally grown, which is a peer verified program, which follows the standards of the organic certification, but does not have the fees or the level of regulatory oversight. So some things to think about. All right, so what else, right? So if any time that you are going to add additional products or services on your farm, you're going to be potentially adding more regulation, risk, and requirements. So for example, we didn't even get into processed foods because that's a whole nother topic. Maybe you want to have people on your farm, maybe you want to have a U-pick farm and then you're not doing all the work. Or maybe you want to sell animal products as well. You want to sell eggs or milk or meat. Anytime we're adding products or services, we're going to probably be engaging in deeper levels of regulation and things like that. So thinking about if you have people on your farm, you absolutely need to be insured for that, right? And this could be even if they're just coming to pick up their CSA share once a week. You need to make sure that your property insurance, your homeowner's insurance covers visitors, especially visitors that might be engaged in your business. And even if people don't come to your farm, we strongly recommend that you get liability insurance for your farm and products. And very often your farmer's market is going to require it before they accept you as a vendor. It's just a way to protect you and protect your assets, right? We're in such a litigious, state of being in our nation that I think any farm that's operating without liability insurance is really opening themselves up to unnecessary risk. And then anytime you change your business structure, right? So maybe going from a sole proprietor to an LLC or an LLC to a corporation, or adding employees is also going to require additional requirements and record keeping. And, this is not a 3-hour webinar, so we're not going to get into all of those. But I am going to share some really important resources that will help you if you have additional components to your farm that you need help navigating. So I have found that this is one of the best places to start. And this is just for anyone, veterans or otherwise, who are looking to start a business. This is business.idaho.gov. And there are a number of really helpful self-guided tours that walk you through what kind of business you need to do and what is going to be required to do that business. And I actually took some time and I walked through this, with in my head, my pretend farm business. And actually what it came up with was really helpful and pretty comprehensive. So, I've tested it a little bit. Depending on how creative your business idea might be, you might run into some gaps or, things that you don't quite understand. But for most small businesses, I found this to be very straightforward. You can also get help while you're here, go through the wizards. If you already are pretty business savvy, you can just use this to access, forms and things like that. So I felt this was really helpful. And then there's also additional links to the Small Business Development Center, which again is very well suited to the kinds of things we're thinking of doing. Even though they don't always understand agriculture, they do understand business. So after all of this, right, you've listened through and you're like, I think I still want to do this. So now you want to connect with your local farmers market. And I apologize, I didn't change this link the last time I gave this talk. It was for a Meridian Library audience. But if you're looking to connect with farmers markets, you want to reach out. You can either go through the Idaho State Department of Agriculture or the Idaho Farmers Market Association to find out where are their markets nearby. And now kind of the markets are wrapping up for the year, so it might be a good idea to start finding out where your market is. Many of our small farmers markets need more produce vendors. So explore some of these options. This is a really good time of year to be thinking and preparing for maybe launching into a produce business next spring. Start small, really maybe a 1 or 2 times at a market if they allow walk-in, or selling to your friends and neighbors in the area, seeing how people like your products and how you like growing and what you're capable of producing. Definitely do the math, figure out if you've got the land to produce, how much you could probably produce on that, what you might be selling. Doing the math to figure out if you would need, say, a nursery license, or that if you're going to be selling more than the minimums. And then continue to learn and make a plan for how you're going to move forward, what resources you still need to access and discover, and just keep learning about this. So the next few slides are going to be some places that I recommend you go to find more help and to find some personalized assistance. And, of course, I'm University of Idaho Extension. I am really going to want to help you with that. So our website, uidaho.edu/small farms, we've got a number of resources on here, from classes and programs to other recorded webinars, publications, and to find an educator that is close to your region. Cultivating Success is a program of University of Idaho Extension. It's our Sustainable Small Farms Education program. This slide is a little bit older, but we do have a full slate of programs scheduled for winter 2024 and spring 2025. So we hope that you can join us for that. We're going to be doing some hybrid small farm in your future classes and other things that help you just plan, look ahead, and figure out what you want to do with your small farm. As far as some of our veterans organizations, I don't know that I mentioned in the beginning the Farmer Veteran Coalition, but that is a major partner, and we will include their link as well. We're very well connected in with them, and a lot of these veterans organizations are very interconnected. So if you contact one of them, they're going to hook you up with some of the others. One is the Idaho Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Right, so they have a lot of work that they're doing in supporting and building small business resources among veterans. So here's their website, and all of their services are available at no cost. We've really enjoyed our connections with the Idaho Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Another really exciting organization doing work to help veterans launch their businesses is the Veteran Entrepreneur Alliance. And again, both of these are statewide organizations. This is their website. They've got a lot of opportunity in networking and connection and meeting other vets, and then helping really to promote veteran-owned businesses and find success. And then Idaho Preferred, this is another division of our Idaho State Department of Agriculture that's focused on domestic marketing. Idaho Preferred is available to any Idaho producer in a way to brand and promote their Idaho products. But we are really lucky that in Idaho, the Farmer Veteran Coalition of Idaho chapter and Idaho Preferred have come together to create this dual logo, Homegrown by Heroes, Idaho Preferred. So this is a really cool trademark that marks your products as both Idaho grown and veteran grown. And you can use this seal on all of your products, on all of your marketing and outreach. So you do need to be a member of the Farmer Veteran Coalition and a member of Idaho Preferred, and you can work through all that by contacting either organization or reaching out to us, and we can share with you how to do that. But this is great. We've got a number of farms now that are adopting that trademark and using it proudly, and we'd really love to see more of that out there. All right, so that is all that I have for you today. I don't see any questions in the chat, so we'll go ahead and stop recording. But just know that this webinar is going to be recorded and posted online, and everyone who registered will receive the link. And feel free to share this with others. It will be free to view and posted on YouTube probably within the next day or two. So thank you so much for joining us. We really hope to be able to help you on your journey of growing and selling produce and really telling your story as a veteran farmer. So thank you so much and have a great day.